it's a red flag.
But for real though, like that. But that's the thing. Like one thing, so it's obvious that black men, in particular, have been faced with a lot of challenges to like the reality we are engaging in, and one of the main challenges is to learn. But the other thing is like challenging people who say they're in community with us to like weave in and out with patience. You know what I'm saying? To be ready for that battle, for that discourse, for that bad take, and like recognize hopefully that the goal here is growth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and if I'm understanding what you mean with that like weaving part, I do think that people need to give more grace to allow people to convert or to engage with ideas, or even just to like
disagree,
be able to engage with like, just because you're the more progressive person doesn't mean that you're 100% completely right and the other person is completely wrong. Being able to understand like what a person who is on the ground level is actually experiencing. But two, and there's a point that you made, I think, in maybe the first time you came through on the pod, which is that like, I think people who are getting corrected have to also come with some grace to be like, look, maybe a person correcting me might not say it as nice as how I would like it to be. And they might come out the gate a little bit hot, a little bit spicy because they're exhausted. They're exhausted by like being oppressed essentially. So there's a little bit of grace that's got to be given on both sides. It's not just like, oh, you blue-haired folks need to, calm down. It's like, no, sometimes you got to take it on the chin, homeboy. Like, you're tripping, whatever, somebody checks you, keep it pushing,
Yeah. Right. At the end of the day, you'll probably be okay. Josh, I want to over talk you.
Oh, no, I mean, well, for one, I was just about to say your chat is funny as hell, bro. Like, because when we was talking about they was talking about like the different words they use for crazy. Somebody said fucking goofy goober. Goddamn silly Billy.
Silly Billy.
I just say silly Billy. I don't. But no.
That's why
you silly sausage.
Because you fuck around and say that in the wrong context and be like, somebody told me in FD's chat. FD chat got the knowledge, and I'm like,
right.
That's what you're supposed to say.
I can't co-sign that one at all.
The new African American.
Not FD's words at all, but yeah, I do think like I completely agree with Eddie 1000%. Like and you, because like me and Eddie have had these conversations before, like where Eddie is more progressive than I am. Like he knows more than I do. Like I don't read a lot. I'm not like in that ethos, but it doesn't mean like I have a hateful heart towards anybody. I love everybody. Like I don't give a fuck what you do, and I mean that with love, genuinely. I want everybody to be well, but I'm not in a lot of these spaces and doing a lot of this academic research, just simply because it's not necessarily me. It's not everything ain't for everybody, but if someone does check me if I did something wrong. Right, like if someone
the majority of people are in that position, which is why I think it's important to like have. I'm sorry,
way
Josh,
more than 50%.
Yeah. And
sorry, we
right. I nigga just can't get I just can't complete my words.
He was like, "Look, I'm not the most academic, and sometimes people tend to
$100 words. $100. In the sense of metaphysical, rhetorical. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right.
We the black bourgeoisie, just over talking.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead, man.
Down on me, goddamn. Y'all just niggas using me as a springboard to get y'all shit off.
Just shut up.
Yeah. Like like because even like a moment ago, like when FD said, "Oh, that's a pejorative. Like you can't say crazy," and I immediately said, "Oh, my apologies," because I just feel like a lot of people just have to have that grace, because if you offend somebody, like it ain't that damn deep. But we could also have that conversation of why is it wild to say crazy, like, and then like gain better understanding, and then just give people like leeway, because I'm kind of still on the fence with it. Like I didn't know it was that deep, but FD, you have an audience of people who really is affected by this word. But the majority of Americans aren't really affected by this word like that. So like we don't even think
or don't have the language to talk about it.
Don't even have the language. Yeah. So
yeah.
But
like I think that's and that's kind of like one of the bigger thing. I think if you're really about like if there's a gap between content creation, social media, gender wars, anti-SJW content, like people just getting their tweets off, right? And then are you really about your folks? Are you really about this life and about like progress, right? And so if you're really about progress, you need to, everybody isn't going to be able to, you need regular niggas on your side. And you need ways to speak to them folks that don't create barriers. And the barrier, and whatever barriers come up, it needs to be a mutual effort to render them down. And I always use the example of the one day I spent in Occupy Wall Street way back when. I did one day in Occupy Wall Street, and the thing I immediately saw that was fucked up is that you had all these predominantly white, like young liberals and leftists at Woodruff Park in Atlanta, which is a center for houseless people. And it's like, and we're not talking about like the idealized movie version of like homeless people. We're talking about there's a hospital around the corner, Grady Hospital, that is the core place where unhoused people that are mentally ill, that don't have any resources or support, will cycle in and out from the hospital to that park on a regular basis, who are in like seriously dire straits with their either their just condition or their like mental condition. And like these people did not want to even like share the park with them. They were about to occupy Wall Street and then like push the homeless people out the park. And I'm like, oh, y'all are immediately not doing shit right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, if there's one critique that I will give credit to from, you know, centrists and people on the right, is that there's so many people that call themselves liberals and leftists that will talk about certain communities all day on the internet and never set foot in one of those, in the spaces where those communities actually exist. You know what I'm saying?
More than willing to silence that community in service of, look how smart we are and look how you know, progressive and helpful we are.
You know, and so that also means on the flips. So this is a challenge to that community, right? That as we develop, you know, and not for everybody. Because some folks, if you ain't got it in you, I ain't about to require you. Like some folks have been put through the ringer in these spaces by people saying they're just trying to learn, but then they start playing devil's advocate, and then they start with the well actuallys. And so, like, you know, I understand that, but those who still have the energy and the heart for it, we have to maintain an open like discourse. I feel like we spend too much time trying to convert, persuade, than to motivate. I think that cost us the primaries. Biden low-key motivated to vote.
What's the difference between those?
So I say convert, persuade is, I hate to bring these motherfuckers up, but that's like these chronically online people that want to win the argument, right? As opposed to, I want to motivate people like me and you had a disagreement, Eddie. By having this disagreement, I think play out the way it did, I'm gonna say, yo, you know, you can holler at my girl here and she can kind of explain to you where she's coming from with this thing. And then you're motivated to make a connection and learn, and you're actually pulled into community that way, versus being like, look, I'm gonna have to cut you off the stream, bro. You doing too much. You know what I'm saying? Or like feeling like I need to perform for my audience, right? Be like, FD, you can't let that slide in front of us. So I gotta like pull out all my degrees and you know.
True.
And so like that's what I take away from it, is what is the real goal there? You know what I mean?
Yeah, is it okay? Because when I'm thinking about like convert and persuade, it's like winning a person over to your style of thought, not just like dominating them with your style of thought, but it's getting them to understand and maybe even change their mind and integrate that in. And that seems like a inviting thing. Like winning the debate is different.
It is outside of the space I'm in. So that's how a normal person sees those words.
Right. But
go ahead, Josh.
That's so interesting you say like it is outside of the space that you're in. Like, is there something, because is there something, could there be something slightly off about the space that you're in?
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like it's like that, if you can't, that's one thing that be killing me, like when, because it's like so difficult to talk
Can't get
and
to a
be
sentence.
real and like talk on ground level with people, because like they're so far in one direction to where like you kind of get into like a no spin zone or an echo chamber. Yeah. And one of the things that's most important when you are having a discourse with somebody else is, of course, like there should be respect, a bottom layer of respect in that conversation, just for another human being. But if you want to understand, then if you want to be understood, seek to understand first. Like, everybody loves talking about themselves. Ask them questions like, well, why do you think this? Even if they say some even if they say some wild shit or some bullshit, it's like, okay, well, this is why you think this wild shit. Well, okay, well, maybe this is a starting point for me to say why I say. And if you can try to actually understand where I'm coming from, then that actually leads to productive conversations. But if you in a space where you can't even like do that because it's like, it ain't necessarily what we're doing over here, my boy. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of tough.
It's tough, and it's like it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So on one end, so like there's multiple trans women in the chat right now, right?
Mhm.
And so like for the last good 2-3 years, it's been open season on trans women. Like on a regular basis, they can't wake up without catching hell. Whether it be they can't turn on the news, they can't get on Twitter. You know what I'm saying? And then like, and I don't want to spend too much time here for this reason.
Yeah.
There's all these discourses about trans women and trans people, and it never includes them in the conversation.
Yeah.
So like by the time you like encounter a trans woman and like have a flip up or want to ask a question, she's
ready
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Yeah, of course,
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
And so like I have the vibe of for me and mine, and for like people that are involved in certain portions of the space, it's kind of just like a zero tolerance policy. You know what I'm saying? Now I take it upon myself to travel out and pull in, right? Travel out, have discourses, pull in. I'm real careful about what I make into content. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to have. I'm probably going to make a video about trans issues in the future, because like I feel like at this point it just needs to happen. But also, you haven't heard me talk about trans people a whole bunch of times, because it's like that's there's a cynical level to that, because like since everybody wants to talk about it, if I talk about it, I can get clicks, etc. On the flip side, I wasn't in community. I've never been in real community with trans people until I got on YouTube, and then I had I worked with some trans folks. And there was a couple times where I had to ask a question. So the pronoun means what?
And so what's going on with that?
Why are we doing this? And don't you think this? And don't you think that? And I'm sure I'd never forget. It was a black trans man. I never forget the way this nigga rolled his eyes at me after one question, and I was like, "Oh shit, I'm doing it.
Oh yeah,
man.
I'm doing it."
That shit, yeah. I've been checked before in the cell, and I was like, "I'm just gonna go die." Like, I'm sorry.
It's easy to just lay down and die.
Yeah, I apologize for existing. You got to play boy. Like,
but this is to say that you're right still, Josh, in that. You know, one of the things wrong with this space is that it's incredibly white, right? And that a lot of white people, some of them trans themselves, and queer themselves, love to use, for them, this is a struggle of identity, not identifying with like being queer sometimes, but identifying as better than my white peers, as a progressive, as a leftist. And I'm the best leftist because I use all the appropriate terms and have all the safe, mild takes, and I support all the causes that Twitter tells me to support. And it's like when you ask them to like operationalize that, to make that pragmatic, it falls apart. And then when you push them, the racism comes out or the otherism comes out, right?
Yeah.
So that's yeah. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when it comes to like the point that we were making before about like, you know, sometimes you just gotta take it on the chin, and you go, look, if you're a trans woman, especially a black trans woman, you've been just getting it from both sides. You might be quite exhausted by the time it comes to like having to explain your humanity to another person. I get that. But a lot of these motherfuckers are not in that situation. They've got plenty of extra space on their plate to be patient, but they get a clout payoff by not being patient, because they get to be the super woke, the super progressive, always saying the right thing, and gatekeeping. And then gatekeeping what other people like, instead of, like you said, operationalizing it to where other people can think in the same way, they can use it as a way of constantly being able to dunk on others, knowing that people won't be able to replicate their style of thought because they're not willing to share it.
Right.
And like, come on, you're white, you're cisgender, you're well off. Like, you ain't fighting for your humanity daily. Come on, like, you got space.
You got time. You got space. And energy. You know what I'm saying? And black cisgender people as well. Like a lot of.
Oh yeah. I just picked that for all of the ticks, but like go down the roster.
You know, I had some male feminist moments once I read my first bell hooks. You know, I started reading little bell hooks. Got a little. Got
Oh,
my
you
son
started
on
laying
it.
in on niggas at the
I was
cookout.
oh,
Like, well,
I'm
actually,
gonna-
guys.
No, well, actually, my brother, I pulled the hotel into the intersectional feminist,
Yeah.
and I was a terror.
Oh yeah, I bet. Back in Africa, brother,
Right.
all the women were
The
queens.
white
Like,
supremacist heteropatriarchy, my brother, is why you are with that snow bunny in the first place. You're not appreciating.
that's why you got your Coob's child on your arm, brother.